Hi everybody, my name's Eva and I'm currently on a kickstart with Rejection and I'm working with Thrive and the Learning Foundry. So I am hosting this call today and our guest is Oliver Jude, who is a young entrepreneur. Just a quick thing before we start as well, if anybody has any questions for Oliver or wants to get in touch with him, if you email us info@thrive-cic.co.uk, we'll pass on any information that you need. Without further ado, you can go for it, Oliver.
Thank you so much for having me on. So I am Oliver Jude. I am a 17-year-old young entrepreneur from the small town of St Helens, based within the city region. My kind of businesses. So I am the CEO and founder of Oliver Jude Clothing, the Positivity People CIC, and Jude Productions. My first business was Oliver Jude Clothing, and my whole background of why I started the business was I was rejected in the educational system. So when I started year 7 in high school, it was a very much of a difficult time in my life. Changing from primary school to high school, that transition through was very difficult in the way of structure changing. Later being diagnosed with autism was very much of change is difficult. So dealing with a everyday classroom, that's the same people in the same room, going to high school, which is a very much of a completely different experience and environment to be in. It was very challenging. And before we got my diagnosis, I was rejected at the end of the day. I was excluded for being different. I got distracted a lot in school, and it led to me not really being understood by staff, kids being bullied by both staff and kids within the educational system. And it was very hard, to say the least. I got my diagnosis in October of 2016. At that point, I was already told never to return to the school, and I was labelled a health and safety risk just due to me being misunderstood. After the school kind of didn't give us any respect, I lost all respect for the school. So therefore, I just got on with my day, how I got on with my day, and, didn't communicate with them and they didn't communicate with me. So it was both just an everyday battle, and it didn't didn't end very well. But yeah, so at the end of the day, I was told to never return to the school and was labelled a health and safety risk. I was placed in two different Minerva centres, which was within 2 different schools within St Helens, and they absolutely loved me. So going from school where they hated me and put this really horrible and nasty label around me, and the accusations were absolutely massive of what they made against me, and going to these Minerva centres, be like, whoa, we wasn't expecting this. And I was like, I'm just being me. I've not changed. I'm not putting it on. I'm just me at the end of the day. This is how this school has interpreted it, and this is how you've interpreted it. So they absolutely loved me. And then I, within that time, was looking for another school, going through a managed transfer with the local authority. Got a lot more rejection from local schools within St Helens, just because of the label that was put against me and the kind of reports that the school, the way that they made me out to be. Everyone was like, no, we don't want him. And then Rainford come, and Rainford was about 3 or 4 miles away from where I lived at the time. So in itself was a massive move and change for me to travel to school. My first school was only around the corner down the road. So for me to have to get on a bus to school, to get on 2 buses to school was a massive thing. And at that time, confidence was at its lowest. My mental health was at its lowest, and it was a very dark time in my life. We first had the initial meeting with Rainford in, I think it was May or June of 2017, and they absolutely loved me. They really, couldn't turn me away. They was like, when can you start? Let's get you in, do all these tests. I'd lost out on so much education, so I literally had no evidence of work. I had like no SATs. I had no of all these different exams and assessments and stuff that they needed. So when I moved to Rainford, they were like, okay, before we do anything, we need you to do all the exams and things. So I think I spent about 3 or 4 weeks on my own, which was, again, wasn't the best, but it needed to be done, and I understood that. So I did spend 3 or 4 weeks doing assessments and exams and different things, and creating student profiles around me of how I can slowly fit into the system. It was very, very difficult to, again, adjust to their policies, their way of, their structure, the way that they work. But I eventually got used to it, and it was okay. I still was, mistakes still were made by me and the school. And we both, very much come to agreements of this is what we've done wrong. This is how we're going to move forward. But obviously, if there's a punishment that needs to be happening, then, it is what it is. But there was very much of focus on how we're moving forward, how we fixing the problem, how we're finding the solution, how are we moving forward, how are we rebuilding that relationship up again. Whereas my first school were very much of this is, there's your punishment. We don't have anything else to do now. And it was just like kind of degrading of me and who I am. So it was very, very, very challenging and quite upsetting to my parents, who were a massive support in my life. And then in Rainford, it was, I don't know where to start. I met a guy called Miguel, who was from a company at the time called MD Productions, and Miguel walked through the door. I was told I was going on a behaviour management course by the school, and Miguel walked through, which was the complete opposite of what I expected, which was a kind of bit of a weird one, really. But I took a lot of inspiration from him, and the way his business ethic was, the way he dealt with the everyday life, the way he structured things, and everything about him really was just a massive inspiration. And I always say now it was the future that walked through the door. And I still to this day work with Miguel 4 years later. I still work with him very closely. So from the inspiration I took from him, I decided to start my own business, which was Oliver Jude Clothing, which came to fruition on the 4th of December 2018. And at the time, I had a massive experience with Miguel. And I remember my mum ringing me on the day of the 4th of December, and it was actually a few days before I was having all my stock delivered, and I was sat on a plane at Manchester Airport flying to Dubai to go out on an event, manage the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix over in F1 in Abu Dhabi. So that was another experience that I gained from working with Miguel. And then I got home and my business was straight on the line and straight spreading positivity. So Oliver Jude Clothing is a clothing brand that spreads positivity through fashion, and is all about positivity slogans across t-shirts, hoodies, jogging bottoms, shorts, bags. I'm currently working on new collections that are coming out very soon to do with autumn and winter, and how we can spread more positivity through those times. A big, massive style of mine is hoodies. So I am excited to get some nice, thick, warm hoodies coming into winter. And then lockdown hit us. So after me building a profile, I spent, just before lockdown, I spent probably about 8 months, which was the busiest time of my life. Every single day was out networking at events. At that time, I lived in Manchester, and I spent a lot of the time in London, Leeds, Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester City Centre, and Cheshire mainly. In Alderley Edge and Wilmslow, I became good friends with the Real Housewives of Cheshire. So I've been on the show twice, and a lot of my time was filled up with filming for this TV show. And you can actually see me on Series 10, Episode 10, and Series 11, Episode 1. Dawn Ward, one of my good friends, actually wore one of my t-shirts on the show. So that was Series 10, Episode 10 at Dawn's charity ball that she does every year. I've met some absolutely incredible people. I've met over 200 celebrities, some of them becoming really good friends of mine. So one of them being Gemma Collins from The Only Way is Essex. She is a big fan and loves the work that I do, and is a really good friend and a massive support. But there's all the Housewives of Cheshire. There's some of the Love Islanders from, I think, like Series 1, and then 2017, 2018, 2019 that I've become really good friends with, and again are a massive support. So there's a whole huge variety of people. And then in February of 2020, just before lockdown hit, I spent a lot of time in London. It was about 4 days a week I was spending in London, out of school, And at the time, it was very awkward because I couldn't tell the school what I was doing due to legal reasons. And then when I had to go back to London and speak to my legal team, they finally allowed me to tell the school after multiple confrontations with the school of them wanting to know why I was getting so much time off school. And I was allowed to tell them that I was doing London Fashion Week. So in February I think it was the 14th or the 15th of February 2020, I spent the weekend in London at London Fashion Week, which was absolutely incredible to have my brand on the runway with models of diversity, and was all about neurodiversity and spreading positivity through diverse models and on a runway in front of thousands of people. So it was a massive opportunity in my life. I was hot on the press, hot on the radio. I was absolutely everywhere at the time, so it was absolutely incredible. And then lockdown did sadly hit in the March, and it really took a toll on business, my mental health, my social life that I had, and things went downhill massively. But in a positive way, I come out of lockdown a lot more stronger than I went in. And whilst we was in lockdown, in May of 2020, I filmed a TV show. So as we went into lockdown, there was a lot of meetings over with ITV over the Housewives of Cheshire and the filming of that. Then I was filming a documentary with the BBC, which was about lockdown and how people are coping through lockdown, what are people getting up to, the restrictions, how are people coping. So that was filmed and went out across February and March. Then I wanted to do my own show, so I decided to get together 24 of my good friends and kind of just put this show together, really, called the OJ Show. And I filmed 24 episodes of mental health series, and it became a business. I was speaking with celebrities, influencers, life coaches, artists, everyone from professional football players to magicians to business owners. Honestly, it was a whole host of different people. And that turned into my second business, which is Jude Productions. That is now business development, website creation, social media creation, website management, social media management, content creation, content management, startup ventures for small businesses that are wanting to do well, and how we can kind of bulk around their business, looking at business plans and like what your 1, 3, 5-year plans of business. And then I wanted to give back to the community. So after a long time, after 2 years of my business of Oliver Jude Clothing, I realized that there was a lot more community-based things that I needed to do. When I first opened up about my story in the educational system, I had a lot of parents that messaged me saying their child was going through the same, which was heartbreaking for me. And I could only do anything but I could only sympathize with them, and I couldn't do anything else other than that, because I wasn't I literally was nothing I could have done. So then I got myself mental health first aid trained and decided to start the Positivity People CIC, which is working with young people across the city region, taking it national and international, with different projects and programs together that are basically putting all the structure, all the wraparound support, all the development that a child needs from such a young child going through the transition from primary school to high school to college, college to university, all the life skills that they're going to need, the work experience that they're going to need, the life experience that they're going to need, and basically everything that it takes to get yourself into the adult world, as they say. So that's what the Positivity People CIC does. I've hosted multiple workshops through that, working with young people on futures and how barriers that are going to get in their way and how they are going to move forward. A lot of them do have additional needs and learning difficulties, which I can relate with. So it's a much more easy way for me to learn and for me to connect with the young people, obviously kind of not agreeing, understanding their experience through life, really. And I just know after some of the questions here as well, so kind of my typical day-to-day activities are a lot of printing t-shirts and hoodies. I also I'm slowly starting to manage a team, so I'm slowly starting to take on staff. due to the high demand in business that there is. Still to this day, right now, I am the one-man band of 3 businesses going into 8 businesses. So I do have another 5 under wraps, which are all in construction, and I am slowly starting to take on teams and build the businesses more and build the staff. And I think the best part of what I do is very much seeing the results, seeing the young people succeed in life, seeing the businesses come to fruition, seeing the people wearing the positivity clothing, especially the clothing, with it being international. I have a clients from America to Dubai to Australia to Spain, France, Ireland. There's honestly a massive kind of variety of locations that I'm based in. And I think any advice I'd give as well would be never stop believing, don't give up. Life's hard, life's challenging, but work with me. I've got all the resources there for young people to come and get work experience, get everything that they need in life, to spread positivity, anything that is necessary. I'm here to help. So please, for anyone that is going to watch this or is watching, don't give up. If you're struggling, open up. Speak out, open up, and I'm here to listen. Ring me, text me, email me, jump on a Zoom. I am more than happy to speak to everyone. And in a short 20 minutes, that is me.
Oh, well, that was so interesting. Just before, I've got a few questions myself, but just before I do go into them, I genuinely just wanted to say thank you. Just like in a sense of like, you are like an inspiration. Like, it's hard to almost recognize yourself as an inspiration because it's your life. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't really see it, but just in terms of like the whole growing up thing, and like, as you said about parents getting in touch with you about the fact that their child's going through the same thing, it is like, it happens, and like people don't understand, but it does happen. So like, kind of going on to that, so for people who are getting diagnosed with like with autism, do you know what I mean, like they're realizing their true selves, and it's not just them feeling like unwanted by a school. There's kind of like there is something that like the doctors have told them about. Would there be any advice that you'd like currently that you give to them to kind of help get through that?
Yeah, so one of the things when I did get diagnosed, my mum didn't really know how to tell me. She spoke to other friends who their children were also diagnosed at similar times, and the majority of them took it in a bad way of, they kind of didn't want the label of autism, whereas I took it in a massive positive way because of the struggles that I had. I knew that this was going to be the answers to all the questions that we had.
Yeah.
We knew that this was the answer to all the support. This was kind of the key to open the door of everything that I needed. So for me, and still to this day, I'm very open in being autistic, because it's, at the end of the day, it's just a great thing. It's nothing
100%.
nothing
It's
kind
not
of
gonna hold you back.
exactly that. And if anything, it's going to help you more in life.
Yeah, exactly. That's it though, isn't it? It's like a lot of people like who do have autism, like I know quite a few people. It's almost like it's quite a scary thing to first get diagnosed with it for some people, because it's like there's a reason for certain behaviors and certain like everything like that, but it's a complete positive thing, and like I understand how it can be scary, but a lot of people like who embrace it end up doing like brilliant things, and it's such a huge it's a huge spectrum. It's not like just because you've got like autism, it doesn't mean you're held back from anything. It just means, okay, you've got this, you can move on, you can smash life still. Do you know what I mean? As you've proven, obviously. But yeah, so what would be your proudest moment as well, would you say?
God, honestly,
I mean, there's a few things, but
I think the awards are a massive thing. So in 2019, I won the Young Community Star Award at the Paddington Talents. And then I was also runner-up at the Positive Awards for the Positive Little Star Award. I've been nominated twice for the National Diversity Awards, for the Positive Role Model Award. I was also nominated for the City of Manchester Business Award, Young Entrepreneur of the Year. I think that might be it.
Yeah.
Is I don't even know if I've ever got the proudest moments. I've done so much, from radio to TV and the celebrities and everything like that, and the work experience I got from Miguel. There's so much to be grateful for.
100%. Would there be almost like a moment where you kind of like it kind of clicked that you were making a bit of a difference for example, with the parents messaging you?
Yeah, I think that was I wasn't expecting it. So when I did first open up and I was in the newspapers, the St Helens Star, the Manchester Evening News, down in London and Essex, I didn't expect any of the response that what I got. I had emails from other businesses that were like, oh my God, you're a massive support, you're a massive inspiration. I had parents opening up, which I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do with this? I can't leave these
Yeah.
people that are coming to me for advice and that are opening up and trusting me. I was like, I'm going to have to do something about this, and which is why through the CIC, through the work that does, is going to answer everyone's questions really, and finding that support. So if people are out there that their child is on the pathway, is going through the assessments, and has been diagnosed and are concerned or do have questions, please, I am here for you to ask questions all day long.
Yeah. Well, you've got a platform, haven't you? So like it's brilliant that you're actually using it and like putting it to good use almost. And then I'd say probably the last one, was there a point in your career where you almost feel like you almost hit a bit of a brick wall and you kind of wanted to give up? Or was it once you're on the treadmill, like you didn't stop type thing?
I think before lockdown, it was very much, it was on the treadmill. I was, very much struggling to get 3 hours sleep a night due to me living in Manchester, due to me being so busy. I'd be up and leaving for school at 6 a.m. So I'd be up about 4:30. I'd be replying to emails, and then I'd be leaving at 6 a.m. going to school, doing all day in school, coming home. I'd get home back to Manchester about 6 o'clock, and then I'd be going straight out again. I'd literally be home for no more than 4 minutes, and I would have been changed and back out again at another event, whether have that been Cheshire, whether have that been Leeds, London, Birmingham,
Yeah.
Scotland. It was everywhere. So I think then it was very much on the go constantly. And then the brick wall was locked down, and I feel like I've hit another brick wall recently in terms of how busy I'm getting. And like, part of me is very scared to take on staff because it's my baby, and at the end of the day, it's me, and it's the way. And I think being autistic as well, because there's so much structure that I know, I'm very hesitant on letting other people take control of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think right now it's not a brick wall, but it's a challenge that I'm getting through.
And it'll take time obviously to overcome, but I mean, like companies start like from the same place, like everything starts small and you've got to build it way up, and it does come with trust, as you said. Like it's hard because it is your baby and like you should be so proud of it, but I guess that's part of the process, isn't it, starting to like let other people in like step by step. But yeah, well, you answered everything brilliantly, so I just want to again say thank you so much for spending your time to talk to me, and like we can put it onto YouTube and everyone can hear what you've got to say. And yeah, if anybody wants to get in touch with Oliver, feel free to get in touch through your social media platforms, I'm guessing, or you can email us what I said at the beginning and we can pass it on. But yeah, so if that's everything, Oliver, we'll close out there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.